And let me share my screen. Okay, so starters, go to Blackboard. And go to the 450 class. And there should be two new links over on the left-hand side of the screen. You should have, first of all, the CUWCS Wi-Fi one. I am. But thanks for double checking. Yes, definitely recording. All right, so there is a, if you go to your Wi-Fi, the SSD is not broadcast. So you see it on mine here because I'm already joined onto it. But if you click on other networks, if you're on a Mac or whatever the similar is for PC, you're going to want to get to a screen that lets you type in the SSID. So type in CUWCS as the SSID, and then the security is WPA23. So that was the default one on here. And then the password is this crazy thing. So type that in, case sensitive and all, and then join the network. That should get you on computer science specific Wi-Fi. All right, were you able to join? Anybody who's in this room? Try to join, because the other part's not going to work if you're trying to follow along with the virtual machine thing. You have to be on this Wi-Fi in order to use the virtual machine. Now, officially, this Wi-Fi is supposed to be available in the proximity of computer science, as well as in by the makerspace in the business building. I think as of right now, it's available everywhere, but there isn't a promise that that will remain the case. Okay. All right. So once you're joined onto that Wi-Fi, next thing you want to do is you want to click on this link over here that says the VSphere login. All right, so here's the IP address of the computer, 192.168.221.250. So this is something you will only be able to reach if you are hooked onto this Wi-Fi, because it lives on that same network. Now, if you try to do it through Chrome, you'll have to change some settings or whatever, because it'll block the site initially. I'm just going to close these things and reopen it. So if you go to that IP address, it should bring you to a page that looks like this. Then click on Launch VSphere Client HTML5. So VSphere is made by VMware, which is a virtual machine maker place, and it's a way to manage multiple virtual machines. So in the room we have back there, we have 3 big computers clustered together with a whole bunch of resources and stuff, and it can host virtual machines. Now I want to log out of here real quick so you can see what the screen looks like. So you'll have a screen that looks like this to log in, and the username and password are in here. So we have set up for, like, there's a single student account. Okay, so you'll log in with that. All right, and that'll get you to a screen that looks like this. Initially, you might just see something that has just data center there on the left or something. All right, so this is our data center that lives in there. It's multiple machines that are connected through there. Yeah, so here's our capacity. We have 82 gigahertz of total processing speed. We have 335 gigabytes of RAM. And we have 62 terabytes of hard drive space. So that's all the virtual machines that can run at the same time have to take that. So we got to be a little bit careful of resources and stuff. So in here, we're going to set up an Ubuntu machine. Now, I'm going to kind of go through the process of what you would do if you were setting up a brand new virtual machine in case you want to play along and maybe set up your own Ubuntu for something else. I'm going to kind of do two separate things here. I'm going to show you that. And then I'm going to show you creating a clone of the machine I've set up, which I think should have your at least starter stuff on it. And then I'm going to show you how to install VNC Server on it so you can potentially reach it from off campus. Okay, once you have it set up. Okay, so we're going to go into our data center. And you should have this thing, the discovered virtual machines or something like that. Even data center will let you do it. If you right click, no, I guess it is in the discovered virtual machines. If you right click, and I'm not actually going to go through the, well, I will. I'll go through this process kind of quickly, and I'll do everything up to actually hitting install. So if you say new virtual machine, all right, this isn't what we're ultimately going to do in here. What we're ultimately going to do in here is we're going to clone my virtual machine. In fact, actually, let's do that first so that can be cooking while I'm doing this other part. All right, so you should see in here a machine that's called Litman CSC450 VM template. You guys see that one? If you right click on that and say clone to virtual machine, give this virtual machine a name, have it be your name and then maybe the class number. All right, because this is going to be your computer on there, and you can, once you're in there, you can change your password and stuff, so nobody else can reach it. But when you want to go in and do your work, you need to make sure you launch your computer. So give yourself some way of uniquely identifying it. Probably put your name and your the class you're using it for, in case you have different virtual machines for different classes. But what I'm going to show you today is also your way of having a virtual machine for different things. I'll show you how to spin up a virtual machine for Windows or something like that. So if you need to create a fake computer for something, you're working on a project or whatever, and you want to virtualize a machine for a .NET project for a class, you'll be able to do all that with what we're showing today. Okay, so give it some sort of name. So Mike Litman CSC450, I'll just call it clone, whatever, because I already have mine on here. Then hit next. It's asking you, where do you want to put this? Just hit cluster 1. Hit next. It's asking you, where do you want the storage to live? It actually doesn't matter where you put it, but put it under VMs. That's where we're going to store the virtual machines. Hit next. Now, these other things, technically you could do something with that, but I'm going to encourage you not to. I kind of have it set up the way that I think it's going to be a reasonable user experience. So don't hit any of those checkboxes to customize the operating system or the virtual machine or anything. Just hit next. And now it's going to confirm what you are wanting to do here. And then when you hit finish, it's going to start cloning that OS. So go ahead and do that. Click finish. I'm going to cancel mine. And you see down here, like it says, copying virtual machine files. Let's see, who's this one? That's my, yeah, so a couple people are cloning it right now. So that's cooking, right? All right, so once that's done, you'll be able to launch it. Oh, there's Brockers, there's Trinell's. So I'm guessing the two of you are cloning, right? Okay, so that's those two things here. All right, so we'll just give it a couple minutes to cook while it's cloning the VM and get it up. Then we'll go in, I'll show you how to launch the VM and go into it. But in the meantime, while that's cooking, let me just demo what you would do if you wanted to create a brand new virtual machine for something. Windows or Ubuntu. If there's an ISO that you need that we don't have on here, let us know and we can load it to install a different OS. But we have Windows a 10 on there and that kind of stuff. So if you right click on Discover Virtual Machines and you say New Virtual Machine, and you click Create a New Virtual Machine, and I'm going to call this guy Litman Windows 10 VM template. And I'm going to put this on cluster 1. I'm going to put it in VMs. Compatible with, just leave it as the default. That's our VSphere server that we're running. All right, so then you get to choose the which operating system you're going to put in there. So, you can choose Windows, Linux, or other. So I'm going to do Windows in this case, since I've already done a bunch of Linux ones. Then you choose from the dropdown your guest operating system. So we're going to do Windows 10 64-bit. Okay, I don't know what this thing does, the virtualization-based security. Makes hardware virtualization secure boot available to the guest also. I'm going to say don't check that. So then hit next. So now it's asking you what kind of hardware do you want this virtual machine to fake. Windows takes a little bit more resources. Now for your Ubuntu ones that you're cloning, that I do have it set up as a dual core CPU with 8 gigs of RAM, 16 gigabyte hard drive, something like that. Typically in Linux, you can get away with less memory than that. I wanted to give you a little extra memory because Ubuntu actually is closer to Windows-like than other Linux distributions. It kind of is a little bit of a heavier footprint Linux. Windows typically is even heavier. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say, I'm going to give this guy, I'm going to give it 12 gigabytes of memory. I don't think 8 is quite enough for Windows, and 16 is probably overkill. Keep in mind that everybody who has a running virtual machine is sharing those resources, but only if it's running. So you can. You just take over the, all right, so I'll choose 12. Does that let you go up to that? Yeah. Like you never have too much. That's what it comes down to. It's like you're just running a BitTorrent server on there, and so you can convert a 2.5-hour movie in 2.5 seconds. It just happens. All right. So everything else you can just leave alone for this. So really just give yourself the number of CPUs and the memory. I would say 2 and 12 is probably fine for what we're doing here. Hit next. All right, so it's going to say where you're going to put this. Actually, I need to go back real quick. Yeah, I forgot to do something. So on this screen here, after you do your 2 CPU and your 12 gigabytes of memory, under New CD DVD, hit the drop down and check data store ISO file. We already have some files on here. It's going to let you browse. You go into the ISO folder. And here is Windows 10 Pro 64-bit. We also have Ubuntu on there. And these are the VSphere stuff. So anything you need that you don't see on there or you want, tell us and we can just download the ISO, send us a link, and we can just put it onto this. So I'll hit OK, and then I'll make sure I hit connect on this, because when it first boots, I want it to boot off of this DVD so it starts the Windows install. So we'll hit next, and then we'll hit finish. All right, so it's spinning up my virtual machine here. So here's Windows 10. And I'm going to go ahead and it's finishing it up here, and then I'll be able to power it on once it's done loading it. Okay, so you just hit the little play button up here. And that's going to be like pushing the power button on that computer. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to launch this in, you can launch it in a web console or in a remote console. I'm going to do a web console right now just for an install, but remote console makes life a little easier if you're doing, actually working on the thing, and you'll see that here in a few minutes. Now, the first time you do this, it's probably going to try to have a pop-up, and then it's going to block that pop-up. So I'm going to show that blocked pop-up. Oh, Windows 10 EFI network unsuccessful. I pressed any key. There we go. Spacebar didn't count as any key. Apparently.
Press almost any key.
I'll press almost any key. All right, so then you just go through the motions, and it's a normal Windows install, you know, like you would do on any normal computer, because effectively you are using a virtual computer now. Okay, so I'll just hit next a couple times. Hit install now. And we'll do Windows 10. I think we'll probably have to do education because enterprise, we won't be able to hit the key server, but it's fine, they're the same. I accept. Oh. All right, and it's cooking. All right, so we'll come back to this in a little while. So what I'm going to do here is I've created my, here's my Littman CSC450 VM template thing. This is my virtual machine that I cloned, and Brocker has his and whatever. So if you go ahead and you turn your machine on, so click on your machine, go and hit the play button to turn it on. Yours might have already come on. I'm actually going to put this other machine to, was it already asleep? I wonder if I have to shut this down. Maybe not. All right, so my 450, I think it's the reason it had to clear those things is because I copied it from a running virtual machine. The other machine was still running, but it does it on its own. I've lost my mouse. All right, so there is my virtual machine here. It should have logged in automatically. I think what I have it set at, I see the mouse. Is the mouse captured on this thing over here? All right. So it probably logged you in automatically on this machine. I'm actually going to show you a different way to launch it that'll make it bigger. Some of you will probably want to do this. So over here, when you first launched it, I launched it in the web console. You can do launch remote console, and you can go download this for Windows, Mac, or Linux, the remote console. So it's actually a software application that runs on your computer. So when I click launch on that, you want the page to open in the remote console, click allow, and that's going to open the remote console here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the window. I can set it to full screen somewhere here. Enter full screen. So there's my computer. And then I'm going to just zoom in here a couple times. Okay. Because I cloned this off my CSC450 machine, the username is CSC450. That's fine. So the username is CSC450. The password is 01234567889. That's the admin password, very secure. Okay. So your machine does log in on its own, but if you need to do some sort of software install or something like that, or update anything on there, username is CSC450. The password is 01234567889. Okay, you should already have virtual or Visual Studio Code installed on here. I put that on, and it should keep it up to date on its own. We can install, oh, here's the Ubuntu DVD is still technically in there. So in any case, there's your running virtual machine, and you have Firefox and all those things. Now, what we're going to go ahead and do, just so you can potentially reach this remotely, is I'm going to open up Firefox, and I'm going to go to Real VNC. I think it's realvnc.com. And I was going to install Real VNC ahead of time. And I might still do that and just put a new template out, and you can just delete it and relaunch the template. But it would have stayed logged in as me if I put VNC Server on there. So when you open Firefox, it probably gives you a weird error like this. I'm going to start a new session. I'm just going to type Real VNC in here. Yep, so the website is realvnc.com. All right, and we want to go to products. And we want to go to, actually, you know what? I wonder, can we do this through apt? Let me just try something real quick. No. I'm going to do Real VNC Server download is what I'm going to search for. There we go. So it's realvnc.com, en connect download VNC. All right, and we're going to download VNC Server for Linux. And Ubuntu is a Debian-based Linux distribution. So choose, it automatically for me chose Debian 64. So go ahead and download VNC Server. And the default is going to say open with software install. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay, so it opened it like this. Go ahead and hit install. It's going to want your password, 0 through 9. No, I just did a Google search for real VNC server download, and it took me directly to the download page. There's like a professional services one. The free one gives you up to 5 machines. Okay, so this guy should be on there now. I'm going to go into this little grid thing down here in the bottom left. And I think we should be able to find it now inside the search. If I type a search for just VNC, it says VNC Server. So go ahead and click on VNC Server. And it's asking me for my password. So 0 through 9. Okay, so then it brings up VNC Connect like this. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to log in. Where is my login screen? It doesn't have to be licensed. I didn't think it had to be like, I thought you get a free one for up to 5 machines. Okay, I just went under licensing. And if you don't have an account, create an account. So I do have an account. But I don't have an account I pay for. This is like just a free. So this is, now it's asking you for a password you want to put in there to give people access to this. So whatever password you want to put in, if you want to keep it as the same password as the machine, 0 through 9, you can, or whatever you want. All right, and it's asking, what do I want to call this guy? I'm going to call it CSC. We'll call this 450 virtual machine. And I'm adding it to Mike's team. And like I said, you're limited to 5 computers. So under the free license, you can, have your computer in your dorm or whatever on it. But once you hit 5, you got to start dropping other ones off. So I'll go ahead and hit apply. It's asking me for my password on here. I've exceeded my total number of machines I'm allowed on there. So before I hit retry, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to do VNC Viewer on my Mac as if I'm remoting in. And it should show me I only show 2 computers. Oh, I'm logged in as my dad. So I need to authenticate that I'm allowed to do this on this machine, trust my computer. So I just got an email. Okay, so yeah, I have too many computers on here right now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove it from here. Maybe I have to manage the account online to remove a computer. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and I don't even know which one. I don't even know what that is, that one. But we know we can get rid of this one. It's one of our old VMs. All right, so now I got rid of a computer. So now I should be able to come back over here and hit retry. All right, so now this guy is added to the computer. I'm at 5 out of 5 computers on here. So now if I want, I can go ahead and close this virtual machine here. Now the idea is that if I'm sitting here and I'm on CUWCS, I might as well access the computer directly. They're logging into VSphere, going to my virtual machine and either launching it in, let's see what's back here, right? Launching it through my remote console, which gives you that bigger screen. If you need to just do something real quick, you can launch it in a web console. First time you'll have to install the software for download remote console. I already have it on my computer. But if you don't have that, or you have already set this up and you're at home, oh, I don't want to close that. Oh, I'm logged in as my dad. No one's making fun of me. Well, I have to sometimes fix his computer. Let's see. I want this guy to not be a full screen right now. Let's go over to the top. How do I make this not a full screen? We're just going to pretend like we don't necessarily care. And I'm just going to close it on there. So now I don't have that open anymore. So now I'm going to go into my VNC Viewer. So presumably, if we're kind of playing this out, you've come to campus, you've logged onto the CUWCS, you've created your virtual machine, you've installed VNC Server on it. Now you are back at home, you're in your dorm, wherever you are, you're off campus somewhere, and you want to access this computer. As long as your virtual machine is still running. Now, just because you didn't shut it down doesn't mean that it wouldn't shut down. Okay, it's possible that if you have enough virtual machines all being requested at the same time, that to save system resources, vSphere shuts pauses, puts to sleep some virtual machines that aren't currently active. But assuming it's still on, you should be able to come into VNC Viewer, launch this. First time it's gonna make this secure connection with it. Hit continue. I'm going to put in the password I set, which was 0 through 9. I'll tell it to go ahead and remember the password. And here is my virtual machine. So this is potentially, I have my virtual machine running here on campus and I'm in Europe or something like that, using that virtual machine once you get VNC Server on it. Okay. Your best experience would likely be to be connected to the CUWCS Wi-Fi and be using it that way. But you're seeing this work right now. And tactically, I am accessing it from off campus because I'm hitting VNC Server cloud, which is then talking to the virtual machine, which has established a connection. So the virtual machine reaches out to VNC Server. I'm reaching out to VNC Server with the client, and then it's connecting me to those two. So I'm tunneling through a cloud connection somewhere off campus right now and accessing all this stuff. Okay. Questions about the virtual machine server thingy?
I'm guessing we cannot get Mac OS on there.
You know what? I don't know the answer to that officially. Let me show you why. I haven't tried it, but here's something that's kind of interesting. Let me just close my VNC viewer here. If I go in, like I'm going to create a new virtual machine. I'll create a new virtual machine here. And I can, here, I'll just call this Mac OS. And I'll choose the cluster. I'll choose VMs. Choose that. It's asking me my guest OS family. If you say other, it lists versions of Mac OS. So Mac OS 1014, I don't know how many revisions ago that is. I'm on 11.1 now. So, I mean, 1014 is not that old. So what is Mac OS 1014? It's Mojave. So it's listing Mac OS Mojave as a viable VM. I mean, my feeling is it must be licensed legal to do it if VSphere is giving me the drop-down option as that being available. I mean, there's probably some sort of like EFI firmware hack or something like that where you can kind of get Mac OS on there through like one of the Hackintosh projects or something, but for them to offer it as an actual OS, I mean, let's just hit next here and see what happens. Okay, so all that created fine. And then, you know, presumably you would search the, I wonder what the content library ISO thing. We probably need to just store them in a different place, but, you know, we would have to get the ISO for Mac OS 1014. This is 1015. That's not gonna work. Here's 1014. This looks pretty shady. We'll click it. All right. I think we should probably stop because I have a feeling any more clicks, this is going to end up on a porn site. Is that soundboard? Is that soundboard? All right. So in any case, maybe I'll test that, or we'll get the Mac OS 1014 ISO on there and just see if it works or what happens. So I guess the short answer is I'm not sure, but it does look like there's an option for it, Noah.
Sweet, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so that is our virtual machine thing. We might need to kind of mess with it a little bit, and since you know, this class is filled up mostly with, you know, juniors and seniors, hopefully we have a little bit better chance of debugging some things as we run into it. But at the very least, I think it is stable. So we'll just have to see what kind of performance we get from it. Realistically, your best bet is probably to run Ubuntu yourself on your computer. But now where you come into kind of there being like a tiebreaker is if you were to virtualize Ubuntu on your computer, you know, like I run it as a virtual machine on my computer locally here. That's then taking up your laptop's resources. Now, depending on what kind of memory and stuff like that you have on the laptop, that could be problematic, right? You'd be using half your CPU power and half your RAM, whatever it is, and then your whole machine feels sluggish. So if you're on an older machine or, you know, not an overly super powered machine, using our virtual machine server might be beneficial because now you're using their resources in that machine. And all you're doing is you're connecting to it through a window, right? You're using the internet connection. That's your processing power of your computer that you're utilizing, okay? So decide what's the best fit for you. It's not the most convenient thing in the world, but it's certainly better than having to buy a second computer or something like that. So in any case, are there questions? Let's see, I can finish this. I can actually log in with my, I think it'll end up being like this. I think Windows 10 actually installs pretty quickly. I think it was just running in the background and it was already stuck in that, something went wrong. Yeah, I'll just skip this, I won't log in. Oh, super memorable password. I have to pick a security question? Why do they ask you 4,000 security questions? I have to do 3? This seems kind of ridiculous. All right, I'm not going to do the rest of this. All right, so in any case, well, I'll do it later on. Feel free to put any VM on there that you want. If there's an ISO that you want to mess with, we can just load it on there as long as it's, I mean, I maybe would avoid doing the 72 CPU thing. You know, maybe kind of limit yourself to 4 cores, 6 cores if you're going to do something. But I mean, if you're just doing it just for a test operating system, do it like 2 cores or 3 or 4 is, I guess, okay. Because keep in mind, you're not going to be running it constantly. And if you want to be, you know, a friendly user, if you are testing something and then you're done using it, you don't know when you're going to use it again for a long time, then you know, put it to sleep. Otherwise, the server, the virtual server, will put it to sleep for you eventually. What was the city I was born? Anybody know where I was born? Fort Campbell.
Fort Campbell.
Oh, childhood nickname. Want to have a guess?
Big Mike.
No. Well, it's kind of related to it. No.
Awesome Fat.
No, Awesome Fat was later in life. So it was Playground. So that was from Little League, because I was a pretty good athlete, and I was always one of the bigger kids, but I wasn't fat back then. But I was like the kid that in Little League where I hit the ball farther than the field could really hold, right? So I hit home runs basically almost every time I got up. So I would hit it into the playground beyond the back fence. And there was this announcer, you know, who announced the kids' games and stuff. And he would, like, when I was up to bat, he'd call me Mike the Playground Littman. And so I like that. No, no, I don't want that. I just want you to show me my final thing. Decline. I just accept. All right, and we got Windows installed. So if you want to do the same thing, you can. If you want to mimic another one, you can. If you want to set up, so I mean, this is how I tend to use the VM when we had the VSphere installed before, is I'll have a couple different versions of Linux, for instance. So I'm going to have a version of Linux that makes sure we have all the right driver stuff for what we're doing in here. That way you can clone off of that, but then I'll have a version maybe for the 300 class that, you know, has, you know, the IDEs we might be using, things like that, you know, stuff that's specialized for that particular class. So that way you have multiple starting points. So I know, like Professor Locklear for the AI class is going to set one up so you have all the Python libraries and stuff like that you need for the machine learning things, and you just spin off that one and you already have everything you need. That's the idea. Okay, so this should give you a decent starting point, but do give me some feedback. I encourage all of you to try to set this up, and if it you have some issues, give me some feedback so we can make this a little bit user-friendly, a little bit more user-friendly. I realize there's a couple of hoops you got to jump through, but I promise once you have it set up, then it's pretty easy to use. But I'd rather you guys be the beta testers than like a freshman class or something like that. Okay, so the plan would be then, now that I'm going to presume everybody will have a Linux operating system, let's assume Ubuntu for Monday. Monday we're going to take some of the code we started talking about last class, and we're going to start compiling it and see what breaks. All right, sound like a plan? Okay, so the only homework I'll say over the weekend is make sure you have a Linux version installed and make sure that GCC works. If you go out to a terminal, you type in GCC and press enter, it should yell at you and say, you must give me the name of a file, not GCC not found. If you're in that situation, you're in good shape. Okay.
Do you want us to send you a screenshot or submit like a screenshot of it?
No, I don't care. I'm just going to trust that you've done it so that when I give you an assignment on Monday related to it, I won't have people coming back complaining that, oh, well, I didn't get Linux installed or something like that. So one way or another, get yourself access to an Ubuntu install. I just showed you how you can do it here on campus. If you are off campus, but need to use the one from on campus, maybe you could talk to one of your classmates about cloning one for you and then setting up the VNC server so that you could remote into it from off campus. I would suggest PayPal tips for for that level of service, but what's up?
So, like, say I live off campus, I'm at home, and I want to access it. I have like Jared go on and turn on my virtual machine.
So what Mike just asked was if he lives off campus and let's just say he wants the VNC in, but it happens to be down. Can he have Jarrett go in and turn his machine on? The answer is yes. And it should automatically start up VNC Server. VNC Server loads in as a service, so it should start up. But in a worst case scenario, he might have to log into your machine and just say start VNC Server. But it should launch with it. That's how it typically works with Ubuntu. But the point is that yes, it can work. And as of right now, he should be able to do it from his dorm room. But I can't promise that'll last forever. Questions, comments, concerns, bribes?
I have a question. So for that, like for Dr. Lackler, some of his like homework assignments, he'll have us do stuff that we can only do in the lab.
Yep.
Like, because we need like a weird version of Word or something like that.
Sure.
In the future, is there a potential for us to be able to just like log in remotely and do stuff like that?
Well, the answer would be yes, because I think we're going to be trying to move away from using the lab machines and move, because the university is now moving towards a laptop program. So every student who comes to campus moving forward is going to be required to have a laptop of a certain kind. So I think the idea in the future would be when you sit in the classroom, instead of your class going to lab, instead the class will sit there and launch the lab computer right from your laptop on your desk. Okay, so there shouldn't be this idea of having a lab to go to and you having to come in to use those machines. The software should be up to date on there. So ultimately our setup here supports that. That doesn't mean we have it set up for that right now, but there's no reason why we can't.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Yep. All right.
I kind of had a question too, kind of like on the same line as Noah's. Do we have to like come into the CS area to like actually access this, like the VM software? Or can we do it from our like dorm rooms?
On the CUWCS Wi-Fi network.
And that's in there then, I'm guessing.
Well, it's available across campus right now, but it's a hidden SSID. That's what I did at the beginning of class. I went in, I typed in that SSID.
Okay,
So
that's what I thought.
Right now it's available anywhere around campus, but Mark Newhouse told us that it would be available by computer science and by the makerspace in the business building. So my guess is that he rushed to get it set up, and at some point in time, he might pull it from being available in the dorms. So
okay, I'll probably just come to the CS like area and just do it there. It's probably just the
correct,
easiest.
or come to the CS area to turn your virtual machine on, make sure he is running, and then go back to your dorm.
Exactly.
Yep.
Well, I think that's just what I wanted to ask.
But I know Jarrett said that for what did you say, $30? $30 per boot, he'll take care of it. That right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's in. All right, I'll talk to everybody later.
See ya.
What's up?
For the internship credit I was messaging you about, do I just like register for the CSC450 credit like I would any other class?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but so, I mean, do you have room this semester?
Yeah.